Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. It's the fourth and final week of the weekly recaps. From next week onward we'll be bringing podcasts dedicated to the races. We'll be talking about the Exact Cross in Beringen and then we roll on to the Super Prestige. The Belgian season is getting underway. The Big Guns race, the Gravel World Championships this weekend. But, well, probably the riders who did Paris Tours had more cyclocross and gravelish conditions because that looked like a hell of a race. And with me here to discuss mainly the cyclocross part of all of this weekend is Issam. Thank you for being here again.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So let's start with cyclocross. I mean, there's so much going on. Gravel, road, cyclocross, and then cyclocross looks more like road racing, and the road racing looks more like gravel, and the gravel looks more like cyclocross. That everything is a bit confusing. But what is less confusing is that the USCX series wrapped up with its final races in Waterloo, Wisconsin. Not a World Cup there anymore, as you all probably know. But it was still a decent weekend of racing there. The women's race, let's start with recapping that. We had Helene Clauzel take the wins on both days. She defied Manon Bakker on both days as well. Sydney McGill was third on the first day and Magali Rochette was third on the second day. Issam, I don't really want to repeat ourselves too much. We've covered most of the riders in the top 10 throughout the past podcast. So instead of repeating ourselves, let's just keep it nice and short here. Helene Clauzel, 8 wins out of 8 races, had a very fun time in the US, nice cultural experience, but certainly she can't be complaining about the sportive part here either, because all fast courses, she very much likes that. 8 wins, a bag of UCI points, probably made a decent amount of prize money. I don't know if she broke even on the trip or made a small profit, but irrelevant. Couldn't be a better start to the season, of course, if you win 8 out of 8 races.
Absolutely. I think, for the Europeans, it's all about the experience in a way. Obviously, the sportive kind of side of it, the results do matter as well, and you want to do well obviously when you start a race, and I think for her being able to sweep the series is definitely something that is encouraging for her, for sure, in terms of starting the season and having, building that confidence as well. But yeah, I think going into this series I expected her definitely to be out there, but the way she did it was definitely a very convincing way, and she had to fend off Bakker a couple of times, but was able to do that. Had that one battle with Rochette, and overall I think just a very class ride from her, and did what she had to do, swept it all. And I think that is it kind of also showcases that when she is in a position to win races, she can definitely do so, and she has just that's just within her. It's very difficult to beat her if you go with her to the line, and when she has that chance, she will just finish the job and take home the victory, and she did just that.
I probably didn't expect 8 victories, but Clauzel being good in the early season and good on the fast courses is barely a surprise to anyone. Bakker, as you said, improved throughout the series. In the beginning, Bakker is a rider who, has a slow start to the season, doesn't like the heat, doesn't like fast courses. And while that's definitely the case throughout the entire series, you could see that she improved after a number of 4th places. She got a 3rd, and then she finished the series with four 2nd places in a row. So that was a good start to the season. And for Bakker, she went there with her brother, and that's also, again, a cultural experience. And ultimately, that's something you shouldn't underestimate. Cyclocross riders also want to have fun, and for a lot of riders, making trips like this is part of having fun and being a bit outside of the regular bubble of constantly racing in Belgium and the Netherlands, going everywhere with your camper van, with your family. It's nice for them. So I think both riders will be happy with making the trip. I don't think you can extrovert this to the extent that, hey, this is going to be a standard. They enjoyed it, they had good results, so they'll be back next year. It's obviously still a lot of money, a lot of commitment to make, so that remains to be seen. Also, no broadcast this year, which won't help the appeal of these races. I think for the rest in the top 10 of the women's races, Issam, not that much to say apart from one rider I would like to mention, Ella Brenneman. She started her season in Charm City with a DNF and a 13th place. She did a big road season. She's a second year under 23. Last year in the USCX series, she also showed her potential by breaking into the top 10 a number of times. Now she got an 8th place in Trek. and this is the only rider I think we haven't really covered in the top 10. So yeah, that's also a good result for her, and it fits together with the trend which we discussed earlier, unless you disagree here, is that there's a number of U23s that can potentially fill the age gap in the women's field because riders are either quite old or quite young.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that the potential is definitely there. That, the top 10 is always, it's a bit of cliche, but it's obviously has a little bit more value than when you have a good result, and you have a good race, but you're just outside of the top 10. So just adds a little bit more to it. And again, we have said it already, I think, for the last couple of weeks. It's all about the development, patience, and getting through these type of races where you just build more and more experience. And I think also for Brenneman, it's, you got to feel it out. And she's at an age right now that you shouldn't be putting too much pressure on yourself, and get through those races, score the results, and enjoy the good moments, but also don't stand too long when a race doesn't really go your way, because that's just part of the progress. And I think that, it showcases where you're able to get yourself within the top 10, that you have the potential, and that is obviously the most important thing, that you find those moments that somewhat confirm to yourself that you're able to mix it up. And as you said, I think that the gap is there. I think definitely that you can mix it up at the moment if we look at how the strength of field is, and that opens up the possibilities for some of the under 23 riders, and I think even for the juniors that are coming up, not particularly for them this year, but overall in the foreseeable future, definitely gives them the possibility to maybe mix it up with the elites a little bit earlier than you probably normally would expect.
Well, I think regarding that, you can count on them doing that, because if you just look at the results from last year, the few opportunities that the woman elite had to race against the woman junior in Europe, you could already see that a number of these women junior were already participating at quite a high level. Like I've already said before, Vida Lopez de San Roman might already be the best American female cyclocross rider there is, and she is a first year U23. Last year in Zolder, a rider like Alyssa White, who's a second year junior, was also fighting against Lauren Zerner, and she's a rider who is well in the top 10 here. So I think regarding that, you can expect these juniors that are coming through to raise the level here in a similar way like you're seeing them do that across the board, because a rider like Imogen Wolf in Gavre, when she finished in the top 20, was already on the U23 podium, which showcases just that every year we see talented juniors come through, and every year they are competitive or somewhat competitive in the elite races. Not immediately fighting for wins, of course, like you can't expect that in any way possible, but yeah, that's just an overall trend, and we will see that in the US. The question is, are these riders remained and preserved for the cyclocross sport, or do they eventually venture into other sports? But we've had that discussion before. So let's move to the men's side then, because there we had a win for Kerry Werner on the first day. He had a very good weekend. He beat Andrew Strohmeyer by 30 seconds, Scott Funston taking third. On the second day, Strohmeyer did take the win, his sixth win of the series. He also won the overall. Kerry Werner was second, ahead of Scott Funston in third. Issam, I don't really think there's too much to say here. We covered it last week. Strohmeyer looks to be the best rider, although he is beatable. Kerry Werner, if he has his day, he's definitely capable of beating him, as shown here. So hopefully we should be in for some good battles between Brunner, Werner, Strohmeyer, and Scott Funston. If it's muddy, he can definitely compete like we saw at US Nationals last year. Curtis White had another rough weekend, had a good first day at DNF. On the second day, we all know his story, health issues in the build-up to the season. But two things here, Issam. Let's start with Dylan Zakrasek. He finished fourth in the USCX series, and he shows consistency, which I think is a key asset. He was 6th and 8th this weekend, and he only missed the top 10 once throughout the USCX series. Didn't break into the top 5 a single time, but did finish 4th in the series. I think he will be relatively happy with those results.
Definitely, and it shows that he definitely made the progress over the summer going into this season, and I feel that is, as you said, the consistency also plays a big role in that progress as well, and those are the results that you have to count on. And I think for him, it's he's getting at that age right now. He made that transfer to competitive edge racing, so for him it's also maybe he gets a little bit more support than he had last year, and he's making those steps, and that's the most important thing. And I think, as you said, it's quite noticeable. Only once missing out of the top 10. Overall, it's definitely a very solid campaign for him. And from now it's looking into basically focusing towards the nationals, and then from there on see what is possible in the European campaign.
Then secondly, Henry Koot, again a standout weekend for the first year U23 of Comp Edge, teammate of Dylan Zakrasek. He finished 6th on the first day, and on the second day he was 4th. He was just a handful of seconds off the podium. Very strong performance again by the rider from, well, he studies in Colorado, but he is originally from Massachusetts. But yeah, very good weekend by Henry, and I think he is very pleased. I know he is very pleased with these results, and it will be interesting to see how he develops. Every point he gets will move him further up the starting grid. And yeah, I think it's not crazy to say that he could be a contender for the American U23 title. I mean, that's definitely not crazy to say. It's not a hot take, but I guess what I want to say is that it's not that surprising if he would win that title. If you look at this, of course, we shouldn't go off these results only, but like, he's beating Marcus Shelton here. Marcus Shelton has been very good this season. That could be an interesting duel. Miles Madden has shown some potential, so that's definitely something to keep tracking as the season progresses towards the Pan American Championships. Probably Ian Eckert will be racing there. At least I saw him at the start of, or registered for one of the races, Kings or Major Taylor, so he'll be starting a season soon, which will be another interesting factor in the North American scene. Then in Europe, Issam, the Czech season started. Originally, the first round of the HSF System Cup was supposed to take place in Velesi nad Lusnici, but that race got cancelled due to heavy floods. There were a lot of heavy floods in the Central European region. Ostrava also almost got cancelled. They said they were about one more day of rising water away from cancelling the event, but luckily it could go through. The men's race on day one was broadcasted. It's one of the most pretty races on the calendar. They race around and through an old industrial factory. They build a ton of bridges so you can go through and around and over some old train or some remains of some mining equipment there. It looks very cool, and unlike former mining sites we've seen like in Beringen and in BLS, not that many punctures, muddy race. It was ultimately not that interesting. Victor van der Putte attacked halfway through the race and took the win ahead of Guus van der Einde. The top two was the same on the second day when it didn't count towards the classification. On the first day, surprising third place for Maximilian Kerrel. And on the second day, the third place went to Polish champion Marek Konwa. Any takeaways here, Issam? Victor van der Putte, 2 wins. I don't think that's all too surprising personally.
No, definitely not. I think that last year already he showed some great promise, in my opinion. I think that it was a matter of him starting and having a good race, not getting into any trouble, and then it was all for him to grab the victory. And I think that he did the job as he had to do. Obviously, at the age that he is right now, you have to have these mature races, especially when you are kind of the favorite when you start off. And I think that he knew his role and he was able to execute that perfectly. And to sweep the weekend, that is what you have to do in the end. And I think it's good for him in terms of points as well that he was able to score. And it's on to the next weekend for him for sure.
Yeah, as you said, Van der Putte, mature ride, did what we would expect from him. But yeah, I watched that Saturday race, and he says Václav Jezek, second year U23 from Bilron Racing Team take the whole shot. Jezek goes a little bit crazy, and well, he blew up, and then Van der Putte is not eager to take over. Kerrel takes over. Van der Putte just sits in, waits for Kerrel to burn out, places an attack, forces the error on Van der Einde. He tripped on the stairs, and Van der Putte cruises kind of to victory after that. Van der Einde second twice is a good start to the season for him as well. He is a second year U23, but Kerrel, that third place on the first day, was quite spectacular in my opinion. I don't have it many times, even when I'm watching these B races, that I don't know a rider who's finishing at the front. Mainly from reading the results in the podcast, I kind of, oh, okay, so I've seen this name before, but Carroll, definitely not. I checked his results. This is by far his best result in his career. He had a couple of top 10s in the last year Toy to Toy Cup, which is now the Haas F System Cup. But nothing really indicated anything like this. He obviously couldn't replicate it on the second day, but it was still a very good result. He is also still a U23 rider. So that was my interesting takeaway from the weekend there. The women's racing were not all too interesting, but there was one rider I would like to talk about, Issam. First day, Alicia Frank took the win ahead of Barbora Yerbakova. But third place went to Amalie Gotwaldova. You might have heard her name on the podcast a couple of times, but she is still a junior. This year she'll be one of the top 5, top 3 contenders at the World Championships and World Cups. But the third place in the elite race here, okay, not the most packed one, is still a very impressive result.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have to think when the name in my head popped up. I think it was, well, I was well aware at Tabor at the Worlds for sure that name came up, but I can remember obviously had some good results at the World Cups, some top 10s, I think.
You'll probably be thinking about Namur, I think, because in Namur she was fighting for the podium. She's a mountain bikester. She was just off the podium there, 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it is definitely someone that's an up and coming talent. It's obviously hard to be recognized as a talent in the juniors with what we had in terms of the juniors that were up there. But I think this year definitely she can showcase herself a little bit more towards the front, obviously, and it will be interesting. It's definitely someone with some potential for sure, and it's also, you know, the fact that she's coming from the Czech Republic, it also makes it a little bit more interesting, I would say, because it's for sure the Czech Republic has heritage in terms of cyclocross, but it would still be a very good addition in terms of having someone from the Czech Republic being able to eventually grow to a, you know, top 5, top 10 elite. So very interesting, and it looks very promising. So definitely someone to keep an eye out for in terms of how she will deal with this season, because I think that, you know, that is definitely someone to watch and very interesting to follow.
Yeah, I already said it. She'll be one of the favorites for the European Championships, and she was the second first year at the World Championships last year. She was 9th there in the junior women's race. She will be a contender for top 3 and top 5 placings in those junior World Cups. So that was an interesting takeaway. Frank also swept the weekend, taking the win on day 2 again ahead of Yerbakova. The third place went to Zuzana Krystala from Poland. Those were the results from the Czech Republic, where the season got underway, but the start of October marks the start of many seasons, or at least the cyclocross season really gets underway. The final race I would like to talk about a bit more in depth is the Brumath Bike Festival. We had quite packed races, I would say. For a C1 in France, it's more than what we'll see throughout the rest of the season. But Niels van der Putten won the men's race, it's a C1 on Sunday, ahead of Corné van Kessel and Loris Roulier. David Menu was 4th and Wart Huips was 5th. Issam, I don't know if you had any takeaways from this race. I thought Van der Putten winning was not really a surprise, but yeah, Roulier in 3rd is maybe a slight surprise, but maybe we also shouldn't be too surprised because it's a fast race early in the season, and that's kind of when we see Roulier in the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, before you said early in the season, that was what popped up, to be honest, and I totally agree with that. I think that it is, you know, especially for someone like Roulier, we have seen that early on. If it's a fast course, he's able to be in the mix even for wins. I think for him, it's now also going to be important to see if he's able to be in the mix later on in the season and be able to, you know, obviously we know that the fast courses are not going to be as regular as we have them right now, because just due to the weather and, you know, how it plays out. You know, I just want to see more of Roulier mid-season, and I want to see him do better in that regard. And I think he has that potential, but maybe he has to find it. Maybe it's coming this season, and he can introduce us to those results. And that would be very cool. But I think, as you said, it's early on in the season. Van de Putte did what he had to do. It's good to see Van Kessel up there, and for Roulier, it's as you said early on, expected. Hopefully, he can take that with him and be also more competitive in the mid-season and the end of the season.
Talking about somebody who did what we would expect or what she had to do, Leonie Bentveld won the women's race by 30 seconds on Norbert Ribeyrolles. Before I talk about the third place, Ribeyrolles being 30 seconds behind there, I would say is actually quite encouraging. Ribeyrolles is a rider who needs hard courses, tough courses. She needs mud. She needs temperatures to be low. This is not at all a course for her, so I would say second place is good for her. Bentveld is also a rider that does better in those conditions, but not to the same extent as I have that association with Ribeyrolles. Then the third place, that place went to Nette Koppens. I must say I've been quite surprised by her season start. She raced the Hope Supercross series in the UK. She finished second in the first round, and then in the overall series she placed seventh. She was in the top 10 of every single race there. The third place here is definitely an up. She races for Akor Tormans. This is her first season of full cyclocross. In the past, she has done a lot of cyclocross, but the number of races has always been fairly limited. She has some sort of affiliation with the De Coaster Bouwpunt team, but I don't know the fine details of that, but she tags them in every single post, but she doesn't race for them. I don't really know what's up there, but a third place here is definitely a very good result. She beat riders like Jintse Peters, Kiona Krabbe, Francesca Baroni. Those riders were all on the bottom end of the top 10. I would say that's very encouraging. Like, I would imagine if she has some sort of association, it doesn't take long for the Coaster Bouwpunt to pick her up. But else, Belgian teams should move in on her. She's a U23, she's 20 years old, or that's her racing age. So, like, you should make a move here, because it's not like the Belgians are that thick on talent. And here, there's maybe a star that's gone under the radar and that's starting to excel.
You have an eye for it. No, but you're stating somewhat the obvious, obviously, because it is... Belgium is not really the country with a lot of talent. Obviously, they have the talent on the men's side, but on the women's side, it's starting to come up, but it's very slow at the moment. And I think when you see someone like a Koppens, as you said, her this whole start of the season for her was quite representative and quite good. So yeah, if there is any Belgium team watching, sign me up. I think that needs to be signed for sure. So, yeah, as you said, if there is something going on in terms of partnership with the Coaster Bouwpunt, then that for sure is going to be that is going to be dealt with within the month. But if that is not the case, then I think it would be very weird if she would be able to be in this situation till, let's say, the end of December or something like that. I think that before that, something has to be done. If she obviously is able to continue on this, because that is obviously also very important, that you're able to kind of bank in those results for a couple of more races, just to make sure that's not a season opener fluke. And then from there on, it's definitely, I think it's not going to be that hard for her to find a team or a team to contact her and sign her.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to present this as some sort of master scout thing, because obviously I also didn't know about this too long after these results only. It's a bit of scoreboard journalism going on in this part of the season, but even if it's only really good in these races, it's not like she's in a professional environment or anything, so she would benefit from it. Like Charles Legois Roastery, they've been working on Julie Brouwers for a number of years now, and I think a rider like this would fit perfectly in their profile. So, like, as I said, there's not that many Belgian talents. They're jumping on every Belgian junior that gets a semi-good result, because they are forced and feel the pressure to also develop in these riders finally, because for years it's not been a priority in Belgium. So Nette Koppens, in my opinion, should also be considered by teams if she isn't already in some way signed to the Coaster Bouwpunt. But good. let's go across some other results in Europe without any discussion. The UK had the start of their National Trophy Series in Derby. Thomas Mean won the men elite race a minute ahead of Toby Barnes. Daniel Barnes was third. The women's race was won by Alderney Baker ahead of Anna Kay and Xan Kreese. Then in Gijon in Spain, we had the start of the Spanish season. Kevin Suarez Fernandez took the win ahead of Miguel Rodriguez Novo. Then Raúl Mira Bonastre won the third place. He didn't win anything. He got the bronze medal. The women elite race was won by Laura Verdonschot ahead of Lucia González Blanco and Sofia Rodriguez Rever. Finally, we had the start of the Italian season in Treviso with Gioelo Bertolini beating Samuele Scapini and Federico Seolin to the win. Carlotta Borella won the women elite race ahead of Rebecca Gariboldi and Alessia Buglieri. Issam, that's it for the cyclocross results of this week. I would like to end with some sad news about Shirin van Anrooij. She raced the Gravel World Championships this week. She said she only raced for fun. She needed to forfeit for the Road World Championships. She's been struggling in the second half of the season, and she has some sort of condition that causes her to lose a lot of power in her left leg, and she'll likely need to undergo surgery, and she'll need to miss likely the entire cyclocross season because of that, and that would be the second year in a row that her cyclocross campaign is hampered. Quite sad news for her because it's obviously affecting her in a lot of ways, not only because she misses cross. Good, well, I think that wraps it up then, Issam. We will be back later this week already. We'll provide a preview. The Belgian season is starting. We're going. Exactkos in Beringen. Preview coming up. After the preview, we have more stuff coming up. We'll be spending our Saturday night recording to release the podcast on Beringen. The race is in the evening. You can find all information on our Instagram, Cyclocross Social. You can find it on our website, Cyclocross Social. And yeah, we're ready, Issam. We're ready. It's finally going to start.
I'm not ready yet. I'm getting ready. I will be ready when we are starting to record for sure. But yeah, as you said, it's from now on. It's I wouldn't say that it is really starting, but in a way, obviously, the attention will for sure grow, especially in the Netherlands and Belgium, mainly in Belgium, to be honest. And then from there on, we are really going in terms of also classification and stuff. So it is getting there, and I will definitely be there with the preview, and I will definitely be there when it's going to be broadcast on TV. Finally, cyclocross on the big screen for me, and then we are off, and we go on with all the other races that are coming up.
Of course, and it's always the same in this phase of the season, especially now, because normally we've been watching cross for a number of weeks and we get the going now. Okay, Super Prestige is starting, we had the warm-up, but now it's going to be the first race, so you're not really in that groove. But yeah, enough waffling. Just a final question, Issam. Belgian Cycling, they're hiring. Have you applied yet? They're looking for a new cyclocross and mountain bike coach.
I haven't. I don't think I matched the qualifications for sure, but yeah, it's interesting that they have put the vacancy up. Means that they are probably going to be in conversations very soon. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see who is going to take up that job, and if they go for someone with experience, or they will take someone with relatively less experience in terms of management. So, but is a big name. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. And obviously, when you become the head coach of the Belgian nation, there is quite some pressure on your shoulders. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that will play out.
You don't think you match their profile? Passionate for cycling, specifically mountain biking and cyclocross. Experience with scouting. You just said sign them. That's scouting to me. Having been active as a rider is only a plus, not a must. You are a team player. You have a driver's license. I only see plus points here. Some I would apply if I were you, and then I'll replace you on the podcast, which will be harder job, I'll start hiring as well. Maybe Sven van Toerenhout has time to be my sidekick then. Well, enough waffling. Issam, thank you. We'll keep following, as you said. Interesting to see who will be the new Belgian national coach. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you guys later for a preview of the Cyclocross in Beringen. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.